Today on BNN News, President Abraham Lincoln gets inaugurated for his second term, pledging malice toward none and charity for all. Also, southern states start passing black codes, subjecting former slaves to restrictions on their freedom, as well as local southern man starts hate group to terrorize blacks. Welcome to BNN News at 7. I'm Abigail Williams. Today we have groundbreaking news for all of you. Listen carefully because the next 15 minutes will be nothing but captivating information. This just in, Lee has surrendered to Grant in Virginia, marking the end of the Civil War, claiming the North as the winners. Tonight, Lincoln will make his last presidential speech and celebrate at Ford's Theater with his wife and fellow Northern peers. Along with that, Congress's proposed 13th Amendment to the Constitution outlining slavery and involuntary servitude was passed by more than two-thirds of the states in the nation. Please welcome John Copperman here to give his viewpoint on Congress's newly proposed 13th Amendment. Hello, John Copperman. Good evening.
Yes, Abigail. I was just at the Capitol where the 13th Amendment has just passed and is being signed by President Abraham Lincoln. The amendment states, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction." This will be a pretty large detriment to the South because of the restriction of slavery in all of the states. In all of the states in the U.S., the only form of involuntary servitude that can exist is if someone committed a crime and was charged with servitude. This was the final goal of the Northern abolitionists, who pushed for this amendment after the Emancipation Proclamation, which limited slavery only for military purpose. The Emancipation Proclamation also did not apply to all states, and would likely have been made void throughout the country at the end of the war.
What do you think the impacts are of this new amendment on our nation?
First of all, I foresee widespread fear among Southerners because now more than ever there's a risk of revolt among former slaves. When black people hear about this amendment that Lincoln has managed to push through Congress, they will stop at nothing to break the chains of slavery. I believe that the South needs to accept the inevitable and truly abolish slavery or risk mass killings and slave rebellions. Also, as this change is anything but gradual, you will be sure to see a lasting hatred of blacks throughout the South. Even when they are freed, they will likely not be treated as first-rate citizens, and I would not be surprised to see hate groups surface around the country. I think that we really have to watch ourselves so that the nation does not break into war again, as it will take years before we can reconcile the relationship between the North and South. Between then and now, the important thing is to enter an era of reconstruction as to rebuild the South and to make sure the South has the ability to maintain their economy without the help of slave labor. It is essential to the stability of the nation to rebuild the nation after being destroyed by war, and to recreate positive relations between northern and southern states.
What are your views on the new amendment? Do you think that it will help us as a nation or hurt us after thinking about all of the impacts it will and has already had on our nation?
Personally, I have a problem with slavery, morally speaking, that is. However, I can see the Constitution does permit it, so I guess I see it as a mixed blessing. On one hand, it is beneficial that we as a nation are finally getting somewhere on the issue of slavery, but on the other hand, it is awful that it had to take a war and a proclamation that does not completely free slaves to get the ball rolling. As I said before, the process of reconciliation will take some time, and we may have further disputes within our country. But for the former slaves out there, this is a good thing. As for the nation, we will hopefully end this war, putting our differences behind, and can make the country great once again.
Thank you, Mr. Copperman. It is good to have you, and thank you for your insight on our newly passed 13th Amendment. And now a segment on the most recent piece of news involving the surrender of Robert E. Lee. The surrender of Lee, militaristically leading the South in the Civil War, marks the exception of defeat and claims the Union Army victorious of the Civil War. The fight of slavery and secession has now been settled within this nation and hopefully restored the peace amongst Americans. Here we have footage of Ulysses S. Grant's press conference right after this big surrender. Calvin was with the winner of the war, Ulysses S. Grant, after his press conference representing the North, and then later with Robert E. Lee, representing the South, asking them post-war questions.
Good afternoon, my fellow countrymen. The rebelling areas have finally surrendered to the Union Army. We are a whole nation once more. We stopped Lee's army at Lynchburg and then cut them off as they tried to escape through Appomattox Creek. We lost 158 good men on the Union side in this battle, so let us pray for their families. It has been a long 4 years full of strife, but now it's the time to reunify this great country. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
General Grant! BNN News, I have a couple questions for you. Under what terms did General Lee surrender to your forces at the Appomattox, and how will the Southern rebels be treated for their misconduct?
Well, in an effort to regain good relations with our Southern brethren, the terms are very genial. All soldiers will be pardoned and allowed to keep their horses and arms. We shall not punish them too harshly for the rebellion in order to join this nation back together as soon as possible.
And do you plan on sticking with a militaristic career path in the future, or do you have plans to hold a higher executive role in the government?
I will take whatever position the people want me to. But I quite enjoy being a military leader and will be content staying in this position for a while.
Well, that was General Grant's conclusion to this war. Back to... Wait, is that General Lee over there?
I think it is!
Come on, let's get him for an interview. General Lee! General Lee!
What do you want?
How does it feel to have lost the Civil War? And what do you believe caused your defeat in this final battle?
I feel awful bad. At the beginning of the battle, I knew that we would not have enough troops to overcome the Union Army. So I made the decision to surrender my troops to Grant. Otherwise, I would have lost all my men, and that was not acceptable. Lee surrounded my men, and
I meant Grant!
I tried to escape through Appomattox Creek, but he done cut me off. The only thing I could do was surrender.
What was your motivation to lead your troops into this area that was occupied by so many Union soldiers when you were already so greatly outnumbered?
My troops desperately needed supplies, so we had to go to Lynchburg. If not, there was no way our troops could have kept going. Maybe if we rationed our supplies better, but it's too late for that now. It was necessary to go to Lynchburg. I still think that I made the right decision to go for supplies, because there was no other way.
And how do you feel the outcome of this war will affect our nation?
I think that the loss will really affect the South. Lincoln and his abolitionists done won the war. Now they're going to get rid of slavery, and all the cotton production is going to go down the drain. The South can't survive without cotton and tobacco, and if Lincoln thought ahead, he would realize that our loss would affect them. Without our agriculture, the whole country will suffer.
That was General Lee. Back to you, Abigail.
That was footage from earlier today at the press conference. Wait, this just in! There has been an assassination attempt of Secretary of State William Seward and Vice President Andrew Johnson.
Give me some liquid confidence. I got a guy I gotta kill.
That's just the thing. Some hard liquor. Do you need a ride home?
I'm fine to ride by myself!
I can call a...
I'm better driving
call
drunk!
a carriage.
Ah! Away with it! Ah! Ah! Ah!
Luckily, however, we have just heard that both targets are fine. Tragic that this military victory has brought violence in our nation. And now we go live with Calvin, who is currently standing outside Ford's Theater waiting to get an interview with President Lincoln, who is celebrating the victory of the war with his wife and peers. Calvin?
Hi, I'm Calvin Perry, and I came here to interview the president, but something's happened. There's utter chaos.
Oh my God, the president's been shot!
What happened?
Well, when I was there.
What are you looking at?
I just love the theater.
I know, Mary.
Wherever are Ulysses and his wife?
They're not coming tonight.
Why not?
Because no one likes you, Mary. You ruin all of our friendships. You're completely crazy, so I don't know why they would show up.
Well, that's not necessary. I just lost a son. Take your gloves.
No, I don't want... These are terrible gloves.
Six Semper Tyrannis!
Abe!
There There's a reward of $100,000 for anyone who finds both Booth and Harold, as they are the suspected killers of President Lincoln. Thank you all, and we will see you back here next week on BNN News at 7. I'm Abigail Williams. Good night, America.
Say goodbye to Honest Abe. Say hello to lascivious Lincoln.
I'm too sexy for my shirt. Too sexy for my shirt. So sexy it hurts.